How does the operations function relate to other business functions? Are you tired of throwing Hail Marys every day? Listen, operations is probably one of the key reasons that you feel like maybe the business owns you. Your business can't grow when you're not there because if the operations didn't button up, it's just kind of the Wild West. By the end of this video, you're going to see how operations will liberate you from chaos and allow you to build a business that runs and grows with or without you. All right, you can see I got a lot of diagrams on the board, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute, but sometimes it's good for us to have that sort of Vince Lombardi moment where you've got a bunch of professional football players in a locker room. It's the beginning of the season. Vince Lombardi holds up a football and he goes, "This is a football." And a lot of the players look and go, "Duh." And his whole point is, no, let's get back to foundation. I actually heard John Wooden, the great head basketball coach at UCLA that won all those national championships a few decades ago. He used to teach his players how to put their socks on. Now, these are grown men. He's teaching their players how to put their socks on. Why? Because the fundamentals matter. And so here's what I want to help us to understand, is that the purpose of business is not just to make money. That can be a part of it, for sure. In fact, there's a lot of great entities that the money side of it is really secondary. The purpose of business, and by the way, business has been around for thousands of years, so this is not a new concept that we've got in here. We're not just getting some Jim Collins books and Peter Drucker books, and we're like, oh, well, this is fascinating. No. Business has been around since almost the dawn of humanity, and commerce and market and trade. It allows interconnectedness between human beings and this opportunity for us to connect. And one of the core purposes is so that I can serve you and you serve me. Think about this. There's a lot of relationships that you have that you wouldn't have if it wasn't for business, for commerce. But what it allows us to do is to connect products, services to people who need them. And so what that means is I don't have to be an excellent farmer. I can lean on maybe you, a farmer, to provide food for my family. But I can go do these other things so that you can leverage my services for the value of what you need as well. So let's go back and recall that the purpose of business, the purpose of operations within business, is so that we can serve each other. Now, you're going to hear a lot of me go through what we call an operating system. So I want you to think it's what we call the Business on Purpose operating system, or the B.O.P.O.S. And why do we have this? Why do we build this? Because operations is so core to what you do. But as Michael Gerber said, if it's not written down, you don't own it. We're actually a little harsher. We say if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. And so what we want to be able to do is not only document these things, but we want to document them within a structure that makes sense. Kind of like this building that I'm standing in right now, is we could have sheetrock and we could have trim and we could have roofing shingles and all of this stuff. But if we don't have a set of plans, an architectural structure to be actually put this stuff in, then what's the point? It's just sort of random pieces that are together. So I want to take the random pieces of operations that you need in your business in order for it to be able to grow, and I want to put it in a structure that we call the B.O.P.O.S. Now, starting with this operation system, super straightforward. I want you to go across the top. So when we look here, you can see these pages here: purpose, people, process, and profit. So these are what we call the four foundational cornerstones of every business. It doesn't matter what you're selling. You could sell architectural services. You could sell event space services. I'm currently filming this in Orlando. You could sell entertainment services to young kids and families, right? It doesn't matter. Every business has to follow the four P's: purpose, people, process, and profit. Now, under the process vertical is what we call the MSOA, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. But what are those four foundational cornerstones, and why are they so important? Well, with purpose, what we're talking about there is the vision, the mission, the values, the culture of the business. Now, a lot of times people call these sort of the soft touches of the business. I actually don't think they're very soft. They're quite important and quite necessary within a business. And it goes back to what Gerber says: if they're not written down, then they don't exist. And so we need to make sure that we've got a lot of this stuff captured in there. The people vertical that you see there, that vertical is really around the org charts, job roles, hiring process, quarterly 12-week plans, those sorts of things, so that we can align the people with the purpose that we're going for. So business owners, this is really important. Your primary job role is to vigorously defend and promote the purpose, the vision, the mission, the values. A lot of times as business owners, we think that our job is to make sure that the people are cared for. And don't get me wrong, the people are incredibly important. We wouldn't have a business without them. And yet, there are times that because of where we're headed with the vision, sometimes we do different decisions with the people, not the other way around, where we're headed different places with the people, and so we update the vision around that. Not necessarily true. So we need to vigorously both protect, defend, and also promote the vision, mission, values so that the people can thrive in what they're doing. Now, this is going to come back to operations here in just a second. Now, when we go into profit on the end, I'm going to come back to process. I realize I skipped that. When you go to profit, these are all the things around subdividing your bank accounts, how you're going to both pay and receive monies and cash, how you're going to account for those, how you're going to project out in the future with budgets and pro formas, and all of that is in the profit vertical. But how does operations relate to the function of running and leading a business? That's where we go to the process vertical there. So you can see it broke down into 4 core systems. I will tell you this about the 4 foundational cornerstones, or the 4 Ps, which, by the way, if you don't have them, we call the 4 pains as well. So we need to make sure that we have these. But if you skip any one of these, the purpose verticals tells us where we're going, why we're going there, and how we make decisions and what that culture is going to look like. The people vertical tells us who are the who's that are going to run the operations to get us to our vision. The profit vertical tells us how much fuel we're going to have along the way. And then the process vertical is what I'm going to dive into and show us how operations relates to growing a business and building a profitable business. All right, so let's dive into that process vertical, because this is how operations is going to relate to all the other functions of the business. So when we're talking about operations, we actually boil the MSOA, or the marketing, sales, ops, and admin, down into one tool that we call the master process roadmap. So just imagine a spreadsheet. That's it. You got 4 vertical columns, and you've got marketing, sales, operations, and administration. And so when we go down there, I want you to practice right now, in fact. So let's do a little practice. When I ask you, what's a marketing process within your business? What's the first one that comes to your mind? Maybe it's the website updating, or maybe it's social media channels updating, or posting weekly, or it could be prospect follow-up, or prospect recall, how we put that into a CRM, whatever it might be. You should have some things that come to your head. Let me give you another test. Administration or accounting down here. What's a process that currently exists in your business within the administrator or accounting function? Payables, receivables, payrolls, invoicing, all of those sorts of things. Those are all processes. Well, that is the fundamental operations. Now, you might look at this and go, well, you have operations right here as a dedicated system within the business. Well, that's what we call the internal operations, and then you got the full business operations. So in our business, we actually have a role called the business operations integrity role. What does that mean? That's a person in our business that ensures that all of this is running at once, not just this little operations here. But the operations under the process vertical tells us how to actually fulfill the product that we're offering to the world. So we have product fulfillment operations, and then we have the full operations of our actual business to make sure that it runs. All right, so go back, and let's pull the camera back just a little bit. If we look at our 4 Ps, purpose, people, process, profit, within that we have the 4 core. So we have the 4 Ps and the 4 core. The 4 core are these systems within the process vertical of marketing, sales, ops, and admin. If you can start to document and really grab all of this here, what you're doing is you're beginning to articulate what the operations look like within the business and what the operations look like within the fulfillment of your product and service. Here's what's interesting about your product. Your product, don't be offended by this, is a commodity. That's right. So let's say you're a home builder. I could drive down the street. Now, I don't know if you built that home or that home or that home, but they're all beautiful. They all look wonderful, but it could be 3 different builders. And the reality is that home building construction project is a commodity. I don't know the difference, kind of like coffee beans, right? But here's the difference. Your process is your product. So the process via which you deliver your product is the product that you have to offer the world. We also do a lot of succession planning. And we'll tell owners all the time, is you really don't have anything to sell unless it's captured and documented, and the unique process of what you have to offer the world is what you're actually selling. So you're not selling the homes that you build. You're not selling the services that you render, maybe the architectural plans or the legal services or whatever. What you're selling is the process via which those things happen. But if you don't have that process documented in the 4 core systems, marketing, sales, ops, and admin, what you're doing is you are taking operations as the function of a business and you're prioritizing it over everything else. It becomes the functional god of your business, when in reality what people most want to see and what keeps a business growing and running with or without you is that this entire thing is running whether you're there or not. Let me give you a story. I think it'll maybe illustrate this a little bit. So I know it doesn't look like it, but I played college football back in the day. I was actually a walk-on. There's a whole story around that. And the first time I ever snapped a football in a live football game was at a small little stadium in Baton Rouge, Louisiana called Louisiana State University. It was about 80,000 people. It was pouring down rain, and I was freaked out. But anyway, So we go through this whole thing, and as a deep snapper, that's what was my job, so I threw a football upside down and backwards to a punter standing 15 yards behind me. I like to call myself and think of myself a little bit of an upside down quarterback. It didn't give me a lot of play, but that's all right. And so I would throw the ball upside down to the punter. I was a part of what they called the special team. So in football, you have 3 subdivisions of one team. So it's not just the team that wins, but you have these 3 coordinated subdivisions. You have offense, they're trying to proactively score points. You have defense, they're trying to proactively keep the other team from scoring points, but sometimes they can actually score points. And you have special teams. This is sort of the kicking unit. They kick off, field goals, punts, all of these things. And from time to time, they play both offense and defense. They could try to get the ball and go score again, or they try to prevent the other team from being able to score. Football teams only work well. You'll hear a lot of football coaches talk at the end. They're saying, hey, we played well in all 3 phases of the game. When we're talking about business, there are 2 core phases of the game. You've got the 4 P's, purpose, people, process, and profit, and you have the 4 core, marketing, sales, ops, and admin. And you have 2 separate operations. So how does the operations function relate to all the other functions? Well, it depends on your operations. If you're talking about the operations of the entire business, how we operate the vision, mission, values, culture, how we operate the org charts, job roles, etc., that's the macro level operations of the business and the business running itself. But you could be talking about the micro level operations that actually fulfills the product. So you see how there's 2 different types of operations here, one from the macro version of the business and one from the micro version of the business that's there. But here's the ultimate question. Is any of this documented in your business? If it's not, then what you have is you got a gig or a job in your head, but you don't have a business that others can run and grow whether you're there or not. All right, so let's put all of this together. If we take the operations of how a business runs, and so that's the day-to-day, let's go back to home building. We tend to work with a lot of home builders from time to time. So that's things like ordering materials, pulling permits, doing a weekly update to the customer. Like all those are little steps in the entire operational process of building a home. And so with this, it's all documented, but that's our product fulfillment. And so if we're doing this well, and we're doing these 4 P's well, now what we have is a business that can run and grow with or without you, and we have a business where the people can flourish. They've got clarity. They may not like it all. That's okay. That's a totally different discussion, but at least they have clarity. And you've heard it said before, clarity is kindness. Clarity is kindness not necessarily because it's nice. Clarity is kindness because it's clear. And that's what a lot of people want when they do it. So when we take time to create clarity within our operations, both macro and micro, now we've got a business that can run and grow with or without us. Now, you might have thought as I was going through this, you're like, I don't even know that I have a vision. Well, the good news is I have created an amazing video for you to be able to go build a vision story, or what you might call a strategic plan. So make sure you click the link in the description and below and go check out that video. It's really going to help you think through the 7 categories of a great vision story. My name is Scott Beebe. We work with business owners between 3 and 100 employees to build their purpose, people, process, and profit, so that you can build a business that liberates you from chaos to make time for what matters most.